Hello, and welcome to this webinar on Panoptix LiveScope. I'm Dow Thornton with Garmin International, and today we're going to go over Panoptix LiveScope Installation and Setup. Like always, if you've been on one of our webinars before, please, if you have any questions, please email marine.training@garmin.com and make sure you have specific questions on this webinar and put that in the comments. All right. With that saying, let's get going. All right, change the screen. All right, so first I want to kind of talk about kind of the history of Panoptix and why it's the ideal fishing sonar. So in 2015, we introduced the original Panoptix, the original phased array sonar. And that sonar is still available. We still have the Panoptix transducers. That's not LiveScope, but it is Panoptix. And the frequency is a little different than LiveScope, but that Panoptix is still really good for deep water. And when I say deep water for Panoptix, if you need to shoot over 200 feet forward or down, you may want to opt for the original Panoptix. But what makes LiveScope so great, we took the best of our high resolution, our clear view, and our side view, and we developed the phased array sonar, and when we merged those two together, you get the high resolution live sonar, which we all have come to know and love, called Panoptix LiveScope. So when you purchased Panoptix LiveScope, it basically is a two-part system. So you have the GLS-10, which is the black box, and it also comes with the LVS-32, which is the transducer. So the frequency range on LiveScope is 530 through 1100 kilohertz. So basically what this is doing, you have 6 sonar beams in that transducer generated by 3 arrays. And those arrays are all bursting 530 through 1100 all at the same time. So you have all those frequencies bursting out every second. And that's how you get that live image back, almost like that ultrasound. When I talked earlier about the original Panoptix was one frequency, 417. So it was phased array sonar, but one frequency doing a sweep. So you can see the difference in the image quality coming back with the original Panoptix pulsing one frequency at 417, and then the Panoptix LiveScope, which is using 530 through 1100, pulsing all those frequencies every second. So you're getting a much crisper image back. Both units are 500 watts of power. The beam width on Panoptix is 20 degrees forward and 135 degrees down, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. The maximum depth here is down to 200 feet, and again, I'll talk about that on the next slide. The transducer does have depth, speed, and temp basically built into the transducer. The LiveScope also has the AHAR system built in, and that's an attitude heading reference system. And that basically is a stabilization for the sonar. When that image comes back to the chart plotter, it's kind of like having stabilized binoculars. Depending on, the boat may be bouncing up and down, you may be in rough conditions, but you shouldn't see any of that distortion on the screen. You should have a good, crisp, clean, steady screen. And that's what AHARS does for you. The transducer will read water temperature, and the transducer will source traditional and clear view. So this is one thing I want to make perfectly clear. This is a LiveScope transducer. Again, it will source traditional and clear view. You won't have a choice on frequency range on traditional and clear view. So you may switch to your clear view or your traditional sonar, and you may be running 150 kilohertz. It'll be a single frequency. The next time you sweep back to it, it may be running 200. Okay, so it kind of chooses what frequency to go to every time you go to traditional or clear view. But again, when you're running Panoptix, when you're running the LiveScope, you are running the 530 through 1100 kilohertz all at the same time. So talking about the beam angle. So it's a 20-degree forward beam, and it's 135-degree bow to stern. So you can see on the bottom right on that slide, you're actually seeing a little behind the boat, which can be pretty helpful. The maximum range is 200 feet forward or down. That's in the perfect conditions. So guys, what I recommend is if you're using LiveScope for casting up on the trolling motor, set it at your casting distance. We set all of our pros at around 70 to 75 feet, okay? That's casting distance. You can see targets, you can watch your bait go out. And the great thing about LiveScope, like I tell my customers, this is the only sonar I use right now. If I don't see the fish out in front, I don't cast at it. But the other thing is that when I do see those fish, and maybe I'm throwing a pumpkin worm, and I bring it back and I see those bass come up and turn away, that tells me two things. I know the fish are there for one, but it also tells me that, hey, those fish don't want a pumpkin worm today. So instead of making blind casts, I know the fish are there with LiveScope, and instead of throwing the wrong bait, making 50 or 60 casts, throwing a pumpkin worm that they don't want that day, I know right then, change baits. So that's one of the biggest advantages of having LiveScope. So again, set your range to about 70 or 75 feet. Casting distance. The picture's going to get more distorted when you go further out. You're not going to be happy with it, okay? And again, like I said, the frequency range is 530 through 1100 kilohertz. The top pictures on this screen, I wanted to kind of show you that with LiveScope, a 20-degree beam, if you're looking 60 feet out in front of you, you're looking at a 22-foot, a port to starboard. So if you see fish out there in front of you on LiveScope on the screen, chances are when you make that cast, you're going to be within that 22-foot span of where those fish are, and that's going to actually cause a reaction of those fish. And when you work that lure back, hopefully they'll see it and move to it. What the competition has right now is basically our first generation of Panoptix that was back about 5 or 6 years ago. And what they're using is a 40-degree beam. And when you compare it to LiveScope, first of all, the picture is completely different. But at the same 60-foot casting distance, you're looking at a 60-foot span in front of you. So you may think those fish are directly in front of you, but they may be 30 or 40 feet to the right or 30 or 40 feet to the left. So you may having to make many casts before you can watch that lure come through. Okay, so that's one of the big differences. You want a narrow beam when you're looking for at LiveScope or any forward scanning sonar. Okay, so definitely a 20-degree beam is what you want. So I also wanted to take a minute just to mention that we do have an LVS 32 through-hole transducer. This came out about 2 years ago, and this is for the big offshore boats. Guys wanted to use LiveScope offshore. You can't really use it on the big boats or transom mount, so we do have a LiveScope through-hole transducer that comes with the black box. It comes with the transducer with the fairing block and the stainless steel stem to go through the hull of the boat. So very popular right now, and a lot of guys don't know we make it. So with LiveScope, you're going to get your live down, your live forward, and I'm going to actually go back here and see if I can get this video to play here. So this is your live down, and those are out fish swimming around you. So in about 50, 60 feet of water, I can tell I've got, a bunch of either crappie. Those look more like bass, big fish moving around up under me. Then you also get your, one more. I'll show you one more. This is your live forward. So that's a tree with your bunch of crappie and bait swimming around the top of that tree. Again, the zero spot is where our trolling motor would be, or if you have it on the transom, would be the stern of the boat. Sorry, and then you're shooting out. So about 15 to 20 feet, I have a tree, and you can see that one fish coming down right there. And then you also get, again, live forward, one more video for you real quick, guys. This is the one you guys probably seen. These are some tarpon swimming around. So you have bait fish, and then you have a tarpon swimming around. You got one basically behind the boat about 6 feet, and then you got one forward about 10 feet out. So that's the advantage of LiveScope. You can pull up to an area, put that, if you have it on your trolling motor, Move that trolling motor around and see exactly where those fish are before you make that cast. So continuing, let's talk about LiveScope installation. And again, if you have any questions, please shoot us an email. So with LiveScope, again, you get the black box and you get the transducer. Well, the black box will be plugged straight into the Ethernet port on the back of the unit. So all of our units have at least one network port. Some of them have two. So the black box plugs into the network port. If you have like an EchoMap unit, like a 93, which only has one network port on the back, LiveScope would plug into that port. If you are running a second unit to the helm of the boat, you may have to buy one of our port expanders. That would give you extra ports so you can run another chart plotter or multiple chart plotters into that port expander, and you can share it with the front unit and LiveScope. So again, you're going to have a power, so we want to power the black box. And I recommend putting the box on a switch. You don't have to, when that transducer comes out of the water, it basically cuts off, so you don't have there's not really a way you can hurt the transducer, but I like putting it on a switch, and I'll tell you why. If you're running multiple units, if you're running 3 or 4 Garmin units, they draw a lot of power. And what we found is that when you're trying to turn all these units on at the same time with LiveScope, a lot of times the units, some of them don't want to power up. And what I tell my guys is if you put it on a switch, turn each of your units on independently, and then once they're up and running, hit that switch and turn your LiveScope on. If you don't run a switch to your LiveScope, and you're going to actually have to go in there and disconnect it from power and plug it back in. So it's real easy. Just when you're doing your install, put a switch on it. And then again, the transducer is going to plug into the black box. So when we look at the transducer, the LVS32, you get multiple mounting options are all included in the box. So you have the trolling motor barrel mount in the box, the shaft mount in the box, as well as the transom mount in the box. So unlike some of the other guys out there that make you buy extra brackets for all the different applications, we supply everything in the box. Couple of things I want to tell you when you're mounting the transducer. Please do not use zip ties. Well, let me take a step back. If you do use zip ties, don't crank them down. Just hand tighten them. You don't want to pinch that cable. What we found is that we've got a lot of calls about, noise in the screen on LiveScope. And what it came back to, we found that these people were cranking down these zip ties. And once you crank those zip ties down, you're actually pinching the cables inside. And that's actually introducing noise and interference into those cables. So finger tighten those. If what we also recommend is use waterproof electrical tape. That will work fine. The other thing is just make sure you leave enough slack in the cable to adjust the transducer from the forward to the down position. So you have to manually turn that transducer forward, or if you want to go live down, to the live down position. So make sure, I've seen a lot of guys mount this on their boat, run all the wire up the trolling motor shaft, and then they go to turn it to the live down and it won't turn. So you have to cut all those cables back off. So just make sure, leave enough slack for the rotation. And if you do use zip ties, again, finger tight or waterproof electrical tape. Okay, guys? All right, get my screen to change. So make sure when you're mounting the transducer, if you're mounting it on the barrel or the shaft, and this slide showing mounting it on the shaft, and we kind of recommend mounting it on the shaft. I mount it about 8 to 10 inches above the barrel of the motor, just right below the lay down horn. And that's something you want to make sure that when you lay that motor down, that trolling motor back on the boat, that you're not laying it down where it's going to hit that horn on the boat that holds the trolling motor in. Just make sure you read the instructions. Look at the picture on the way you mount the transducer to the shaft of the trolling motor. It's critical. This is where I see a lot of mistakes. So first, look at the mount. The mount has an arrow pointing up. Okay, make sure you have that arrow pointing up. The trolling, if you're mounting it on the shaft, that bracket has an 8-degree cant angle. So what that's designed to do is miss the barrel of that trolling motor. Okay, so make sure you have that arrow in the up direction before you mount it onto the shaft of your trolling motor. Also, depending on if you're going to mount the transducer on the port or the starboard side of the trolling motor, and really, it really depends on how that motor lays down in your boat when you pull your trolling motor up. If you're the guy like me that has the prop on the outside of the boat, I'm going to mount it like figure 1 and figure 2. If you are the guy who likes when your trolling motor is pulled up at the props on the inside of the boat, maybe for putting a boat cover on, you're going to want to mount it like number 3 and number 4. Okay, those are completely different orientations. Okay, so make sure you're looking at the picture here. We've got the same picture in our manual, and make sure you put this on correctly so you get your live down and your live forward imaging. Trolling motor on the barrel, again, depending on if it's port or starboard, and you can look at the slides, 1 and 2 are completely different orientation than 3 and 4. And that all depends on which side of that barrel you mount that trolling motor on, okay? If you do decide to mount it on the transom, the bracket does come in the box. We do recommend, treat it just like a normal transom mount transducer. You need it to put it where you've got good clean water going over the face of that transducer, so don't put it where there's a chime, or look up under that hole and make sure there's not a high-speed pickup or a discharge that's going to cause dirty water to go over that transducer. I get this call a lot about all transducers. I go, my transducer's not working when I'm running up on speed. Well, when you get up on speed, everything changes on the bottom of the boat. So you have to have good clean water coming over that transducer to get an image. Any air, any disturbance, any turbulence is going to cause a problem on anybody's transducer. Okay. We also recommend that when you're mounting this transducer on the transom, you need to mount it in the forward position. So don't try to mount it in the down position. It's going to create too much of a spray on the back of the boat, off the back of the boat. Okay. So transom mount, please mount it in the forward scanning position. Here's another thing I see quite a bit. When you're mounting the LiveScope box, there is a status light. It blinks either green, red, orange. It'll blink red and green. If you're having an issue with your LiveScope and you call Garmin, we're going to ask you what that light is blinking. If it's blinking red multiple times, if it's blinking red twice, green once, you're going to need to be able to see that light so you can tell us what the code is so we can determine whether this box is working properly or not. So I do get on a lot of boats where this is hidden. I can't get to that box, or sometimes I have to actually turn my phone on, put my phone up under the unit and take a picture so I can see, or a video so I can see what that light's flashing. Okay, so please do yourself and Garmin a favor and mount that where we can see it. So let's talk about the LiveScope LVS12. The LVS12 is a LiveScope, brand new LiveScope, came out about a year ago, and it's basically an inexpensive LiveScope. So again, we know LiveScope's $1,500. You can get the LVS12 for $499. But remember, guys, you're definitely getting what you pay for when it comes to LiveScope. So with the LiveScope LVS12, you're basically getting a 30-degree forward beam and a 30-degree down beam. That's it. Okay, you're not getting the same as the regular LiveScope with the LVS32. Also, the LVS12 is only compatible with the new EchoMap Ultras. it will not work on the EchoMap Plus units, okay? It will only work on the Ultras and the GPS Map 8600s, okay? So, and the reason why is the way it mounts. So we can see the top, the LVS32 LiveScope, like I said before, that plugs into the network port. The LVS12, that plugs into the yellow port, okay? So a couple of things I want to clear up. The LVS32 will not plug into that yellow port. You have to have the black box, okay? If you look at the back of your unit and you do not have a yellow port, the LVS12 will not work, okay? So LVS12 only on the EchoMap Ultras, the 10 and the 12 inch, and the 86, 10, 12, and 16 only, okay? If you don't have that yellow port or one of those units, you have to go, and I definitely recommend going anywhere with it anyway with the LVS32 LiveScope. So when we're comparing the two, we can look at the top slide, the LiveScope system, the LVS32. The full system's $1,500. It has a total of 6 sonar beams generated by 3 arrays, okay? 135 degrees down and a 20-degree beam. The LVS12, I'm sorry, a lower cost, it's $499, but you only have 2 beams generated by 1 array. So you don't have to do any adjustments like we do on the LVS32. You know, you have to click it forward or click the transducer if you want to go to live down. But you only get a 30-degree forward and a 30-degree down. So there is going to be a dead area between those where you're going to lose those fish, okay? So if you guys are familiar with watching all the videos on the LVS32, there's nothing like LiveScope. You may be a little disappointed if you have already been on a boat with the LVS32 and you decide to go with the LVS12. But if you've never had LiveScope and you want to get into it, it's a budget-friendly LiveScope for $499, and you do get a 30-degree forward and a 30-degree down. Same 20-degree cone out in front. So again, you do have a 30-degree beam out in front, and you do have a 30-degree beam down, but you will lose those fish between going from live forward to live down, okay? So what I like to do on the LVS12, the first thing I do is make a combo screen for the customer. So that way they can see their live forward, they can have their live down, and I usually throw a chart page on there as well. You don't have to. This way you can go to your LiveScope screen and have a great view of live forward and live down, again, at 30-degree beam. So LiveScope settings. So out of the box, there's a few things you guys may want to adjust. And if you've watched any of our pros using their LiveScope, this is how we set up every one of our pros boats, okay? So we set TVGs, set to medium, and that's time varying gain. And what that does is it helps reduce noise and surface clutter on the screen, okay? So go into your menu bar, and again, anytime you want to adjust the menu, anything on LiveScope, you hit the menu button first. So you can go turn your TVGs, set them to medium. That's a must. The grid, that's going to give you a grid like on the screen here, so you can kind of see how far or where the fish are on the screen. Some people like the grid on, some people like it off. That's your own preference. Appearance, and I'll show you this in a later slide. We turn our pros boats on to yellow, and that's actually a white screen. I don't know why it says yellow, but you know, that's something, again, it's your own preference. I know a lot of guys like the green emerald. A lot of guys like the blue. So again, when you're on a target, when you're on bait, change those screens real quick and see which one. You know, I get a lot of people tell me that on the blue they can really see bait fish better. So again, it's your own preference. Orientation, we normally set on the forward. Focus, auto fresh, and auto salt. This is pretty important. If you're a freshwater person, freshwater fisherman, it's going to come preset at auto fresh, leave it. But if you fish brackish water, and like me, I fish saltwater, I fish the intercoastal, you need to go into your menu and change that to auto salt, okay? If you have a problem in saltwater or brackish water and you're not getting any distance or you're getting a really bad picture, you need to go take it all out of auto salt, auto fresh, and turn it to auto salt, okay? User AHARS, remember that takes into account rough conditions and stabilization. Make sure you turn that on. Scroll history, turn your scroll history off. That's just going to give you, again, the history of what you went over. It basically fills the screen, half the screen up, so you don't really want that on. Forward range, again, set it to 65 to 75 feet, casting distance. So when you see those fish, you know you can make us cast to them. And gain, start at auto low, and then you can adjust that as we go. So let's talk about calibrating the compass. So these units, you know, when you have the LiveScope mounted on your trolling motor, a lot of times I have to look down at the head of that trolling motor to know which way that trolling motor is pointing, so I know which way LiveScope's pointing. So if you calibrate the compass, you're going to get this little boat icon that you see in the top right corner of the screen, and that actually is going to tell you which way that that LiveScope transducer is pointing. So when I'm looking at the Sonar or I'm looking at my LiveScope looking for fish, I always know which way that LiveScope is pointing. And sometimes I can make a cast because I know, hey, it's turned to the right. I can make a cast and not even have to look at the water. So you do need to calibrate that. We don't recommend you calibrate that if you're going to put LiveScope on the barrel of the trolling motor. You're going to probably have too much interference from the magnets in the motor. So again, if it's on the shaft, definitely calibrate it, and we'll show you how to do that. So to calibrate the compass, again, we want to hit our menu screen. Okay, so we hit our menu button, and then we want to go to Sonar Setup, and we go to Installation, and you'll see Calibrate Compass. So once we hit Calibrate Compass, a screen will pop up that says Begin. And again, turn the boat 1.5 times in either direction. Turn quickly, but keep the boat level and steady. Make sure you do this. You're going to get a bar graph telling you from 0 to 100. And once you're done, when you go back to your screen, you should have that boat icon telling you which way that transducer is pointing. Very simple to do. Auto salt and auto fresh, like I talked about earlier. So again, if you're a freshwater fisherman, it's going to come preset as auto fresh. If you're in brackish water or a salt water, you need to change it to auto salt. So to do that, we hit our menu button, and we go to Sonar Setup, Installation, Focus. It's under the Focus menu, and you're going to see auto salt or auto fresh. Again, based on your water conditions, you need to set that. Screen control, range, and gain. So this is something new. If you guys do your latest software update, you're actually going to see this pop up on the screen where you can actually quickly adjust the range and quickly adjust the gain. So the range, again, I usually set it 70 feet. The gain, this is something you want to play with all the time. If you're not playing with that gain, then you're not using LiveScope correctly. So you're going to constantly turn that gain up and down, looking for structure, looking for fish over that structure. So please, please use that gain button. It automatically pops up on the screen now, so you have fast, easy control. Again, range and gain. Transducer orientation. So to do your transducer orientation, you can go hit your menu button, Sonar Setup, Installation. Oh, went the wrong way. Sorry. So let's go back. Let's go Sonar Setup, Installation, Orientation. I recommend leaving your unit in auto. If you leave the unit in auto, once you turn that LiveScope transducer down, drop that trolling motor down in the water, the screen will automatically, after about 3 or 4 seconds, go to the down image, okay? If you want to go to the live forward, pull that trolling motor back out of the water, click that transducer to the forward position. Once you drop it down in about 3 to 4 seconds, it'll go to the live forward orientation. So leave the unit in auto mode, okay? Echo trail. So this is a feature that we've put in our radar for several years. With the guys looking for birds on their radars, once they find birds, they can actually turn the bird trails on, and it'll leave a little blue line which way those birds are flying so they can follow them. So we've added this to LiveScope. So from your LiveScope Sonar, hit your menu button, again under Sonar Setup, Installation, Trails. You have a slow, medium, and fast. And I would start at the slow, but if you want the trails to move a little faster, you can always go to medium. Once you turn that on, it's going to leave a blue line which way those fish are moving. So I can see these fish right here are all moving behind me, because here is the 0 spot is where the transducer is. So all these fish are actually moving behind me. So again, once that's turned on, you can see those fish are all moving behind me and up, and those are all fish right there, okay? So this is very helpful, especially if you're in grass or weeds. If you're using this copper screen, the fish sometimes will go down into the grass and you'll lose them. I'll turn my echo trails on, and when I see those fish go into the grass or the weeds, I can follow them by that blue line, that blue speck. So between the grass or the weeds, every now and then I'll see blue, and I can tell you exactly where the fish are. Very, very helpful. The other thing is your appearance. Again, this is something personal preference. So when you get out on the boat, change your color scheme, okay? And it's under Menu, Sonar Setup, Appearance, and you're going to have all these colors, amber, copper. A lot of guys love that black emerald, the blue, or the yellow, which is actually white. But once you click on it, you can see there's the emerald green, and then there's the yellow, which is really white. Again, it's your own preference. I got some I like in daylight. I got some I like at night. You know, I've got some when I'm looking for bait, I'll change my screen to a certain color for bait. So again, play with the unit. Couple of things here, guys. If you do have problems, you can always contact Garmin, 1-800-800-1020. But if you can't see further than 30 feet, you probably have that transducer mounted in the wrong direction. Okay, so go back to that screen or go back to the manual, which tells you the proper installation procedure for that transducer. Okay, the transducer is like a flashlight. If it's not pointing forward, you won't see forward. Okay, very important. Leave the Sonar setup, installation, orientation. Leave that set to auto, and leave your AHRS on. Okay. So something new that we just released a couple of weeks ago is the new mount, the LiveScope Perspective mount. This mount is $100, and it'll mount on the shaft of the trolling motor. Okay, so you'll take your original mount off your LiveScope. You'll mount this, and your LiveScope will mount directly to this part right here. And that's going to basically give you a perspective view. So similar to the competition's 360 imaging, this is going to give you 150 forward. It's pretty cool. So see if I can get this video to play. So this is on our trolling motor. We're just spinning that trolling motor around. You can see there's a building. You can actually see there's a couple of fish directly in front of the screen moving around right there. And again, this is where I'd probably go to my gain and adjust my gain down a little bit. But this is a 150 view in front of the boat. And that's all with the new perspective mount for $100. So again, here's the mount. Mounts onto the shaft of the trolling motor. And you take your original LiveScope and mount it onto the mount. Okay. You are going to need to do the software update that came out in February. So all you need to do is buy the mount, do your software update onto your chart plotter, and then you will have the perspective view. So You can see kind of here, this is how your live forward would now look. Instead of mounted straight to the trolling motor, it's now mounted on the new mount. This is going to give your 20-degree cone, 135 degrees forward view, and then you can flip it down one click. This is going to give you your 20 by 135 down. So if you guys are crappie fishermen looking straight down, or looking for grouper or snapper on the bottom in shallow water, you could go to your live down, and then you swing it down. That perspective mount is designed to swing up. It's designed to swing in front of the shaft of the trolling motor, and then you have your perspective view. So it's a 20-degree cone by 150. And I kind of explain it like if you guys have all been to a baseball game, if you set about 30 seats up behind home plate, you can actually see the whole baseball field. So if something moves in left field, hey, cast to left field. If you see fish moving in right field, cast to right field. But you can also see structure. So that's the beauty of the perspective mount. And again, we're also going to supply a sticker in the box to put on your LiveScope. So depending on if, again, you have that transducer mounted on the port side or the starboard side of your trolling motor, this is going to tell you how you need to align that transducer when you drop it in the water. Again, the sticker has a port side and starboard side written on it, so make sure you put those in the right orientation. So in your perspective mode, it should automatically change when you go to that. But if you want to manually do it, you can go into your settings. You go into your menu, hit Sonar Setup, Installation, Orientation, and you'll see a perspective mode pop up. This is how you can play. If you want to look at it in Simulator, if you don't have the mount yet, but you did do your software update, you can go in there and actually go through this menu process and pull it up on the screen and see the simulator. Again, with the new perspective mount, you're not going to lose your forward mode. You're not going to lose your down mode. You're going to gain a perspective mode. So all three modes can be accomplished by using that one bracket for $99. And last but not least, I just wanted to let you guys know, if you're not aware, we are running a LiveScope rebate. It started on 2/12/2020 and it runs through 4/12/2020. So that's a $200 mail-in rebate on the LVS 32 system for $14.99 or the LVS 12. So if you don't want to spend the $1,500, you can basically get the LVS 12 for $300. So make sure you make your purchases by 4/12/2020. We've never done a LiveScope promotion before, so this is the best deal that's out there. Make sure you take advantage of it. So I know that was pretty brief and pretty quick. I want to thank you guys for hanging in there with me today. Make sure if you have any questions on this topic of LiveScope installation or setup, please send them to marine.training@garmin.com, and we promise to answer them in a timely manner. Okay, guys, hope this was helpful to you, and get out on the water, guys. Take care.